Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday Apocryphal Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything Friday Apocryphal and podcast. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today, we are covering Sirach chapters 44 through 47. And it is our 20,000 subscribers special.
With the air quotes.
Special.
Yeah.
Right. We're not doing another 12-hour stream.
No, nothing like that.
Again.
We got no plans. But since we have, a new milestone, we do have to come up with a name.
Yes. Now, there's the inner circle.
Yes.
And then
There's the council.
there's the council. Is there something after the council?
I felt like there was something after the council.
Well, no, there was the outer circle.
The outer circle.
The greater circle.
Okay.
Right. I think.
We'll go with it.
I guess people will correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah.
But, what can we call them? What are the 20,000?
Yeah, I got nothing. The angels, I don't
The apostles.
The apostles, okay.
Yep.
The choir.
All right. Well,
we can
welcome, apostles.
Yes, welcome all of our apostles.
Yeah.
We are...
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back. We are covering Sirach today.
Yeah, we are.
We're almost at the end.
We're very close, and this section is it's very praisey that we're covering today.
Yes.
Lots of praise.
And after Sirach, we're covering Jubilees.
Yes, we do. And you know what? Because we are just so lucky to have fucking awesome people following us, we do have the Hermenia commentary books on Jubilees. We have both volumes. So, very excited to get into Jubilees afterwards.
Excellent.
Because we'll actually have very good commentary for that.
Yeah, and that's newer, right?
Jubilees?
Not
Or the commentaries?
the commentaries.
Well, I think they're relatively newer, yeah.
Yeah. There was one that we were waiting for to come out.
Oh, yeah. We're waiting on the actual translation of Jubilees,
Right.
the Hermenia translation.
And
it's all in there,
does it
technically.
have textual notes?
A little
in it?
bit,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
anyway, it's basically just a very short version of the text. Well, the text is the same, but it's basically just a short version of the notes that are in these commentaries,
Oh, okay.
because it's from Hermenia also.
Yeah. So it's the same translation.
Yes.
Okay. That makes it easier,
Yeah, doesn't it?
honestly. Though maybe the viewers would like to see some variation there.
Maybe.
Maybe. Let us know.
Yeah. Anyways, how about we hop into the readings? I do have a little bit of an introductory section for this.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I have the Anchor Bible version of The Wisdom of Ben Sira, a new translation with notes by Patrick W. Skehan, and introduction and commentary by Alexander A. Delela.
And I have the Wisdom of Ben Sira, also known as Ecclesiasticus. This is from the Society for Promoting Christian Knowledge, and this is the translation from W.O.E. Osterley.
And what you were about to read from is
Yes,
the NIB?
Yes, this is the New Interpreter's Bible Commentary, and we also have Erdman's commentary on the Bible.
Yep.
So we got a whole bunch of stuff here.
We also have a bunch of other books.
Thanks for saying
they're not-
what I said, but in a slightly different way.
Yep. They're not quite as useful this time.
No, they're not.
Nope.
Can I do a pan? You got to let me do a pan.
Do you want to do a pan?
I want to do a pan.
You can do a pan.
Yeah.
Okay. Chris is going to do a pan.
Oh, he's going to fuck it up, though, isn't he? It is on a tripod, but when he puts it back, it's going to be fucked up. I bet that's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Pan it. I have no idea what it looks like because we have like a 10-second delay.
But either way, it's going to be messed up when he comes back. Like, you'll see. Like, I'll be kind of annoyed by it the whole show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think so?
Probably.
Okay.
Man, with that green screen, that pan is just not looking.
Yeah, that's kind of...
Isn't this uncanny?
not looking great.
You could see it's a much bigger green screen. We never get to do that.
Yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah.
But anyways, you were about to read something of value?
Yes, I was. So you already know that it's not my own personal thoughts. So this poetic section praising Israel's ancestors follows naturally from the hymn extolling God's creative activity. For Ben Sira emphasizes the divine election of the heroes lifted up for memorializing. The long account of past worthies concludes with and see, this is a word that I had issues with when I was reading over it. Encomium of Simeon the Second. Encomium? I don't know. Of Simeon the Second, the high priest, contemporary with Ben Sira.
Encomium.
Yeah.
Well, maybe someone can check that for
Well,
us.
I mean,
Did you spell it?
it's the
ENCOM.
I already have the
IUM.
I already have like a translation or not a translation, the definition of the word.
Oh, let's
the
hear it.
definition.
Yeah. So it's basically any speech or writing that is in praise of someone or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just
That's
never
fine.
saw the word before, didn't know how to pronounce it, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
yeah, but there's that. You learn something new every day unless you already knew that word, in which case you did not learn something new today.
Nope. But maybe you will later on in the show.
Maybe you will. Honestly, oh yeah, and then there's a brief personal account or brief personal word from Ben Sira at the end.
Oh.
And it's interesting that it ends with Simeon, who I think we discussed in Second Maccabees there.
Mhm.
And it also starts with Enoch.
Well, you know what? I was going to say that this reminds me of the Book of Enoch in its structure. Insofar as you get the animal apocalypse towards the end, which is, not really related. And it's just a retelling of things that came before.
I mean, you do kind of get the same feeling, and not just with the animal apocalypse, with the generations thing. What was it called? There was that the animal apocalypse, but they set up everything in these generations, and it's in a way it's similar to this, honestly.
Mm.
But this one's just way more lavish and way more. There's a lot more praise here, but it's in a similar way of retelling history, I guess.
All right. Well, why don't we get into it then? Praise of Israel's great ancestors.
Sirach 44.
Yep. I will now praise those godly people, our ancestors, each in his own time. The Most High's portion, great in glory, reserved to himself from ancient days. Rulers of the earth, of royal rank, persons renowned for their valor, or counselors with their shrewd advice, or seers of all things in prophecy. Okay. Sounds like these are some pretty cool dudes.
Yeah, very, very important dudes.
Yep. Resolute governors of the folk, or lawgivers with their rules, sages with their literary discourse, or framers of proverbs and pointed maxims.
So, of course, there's the bias towards scribes. Yeah, which we've seen before. Remember his little thing about why the scribe profession is so much better than the other professions?
Yeah.
It's like you don't got to break your back. You get educated. It's nice being a scribe.
Yep. Composers of melodious psalms or authors with lyric themes. Stalwart, self-reliant persons at peace in their own estates. All these were glorious in their time, each illustrious in his day. Some of them have left behind a name, so that people recount their praises. But of others no memory remains, for when they perished completely, and are as though they never had lived, they and their children after them.
So Ben Sira makes a surprising concession in verses 8 through 9 that some pious individuals died without leaving a name, despite his earlier assurance that good people can count on a living memory. Presumably, he offers this brief introduction as a eulogy to those forgotten and nameless persons. And he will also talk about the judges later on, and he references some unnamed judges, so I'm guessing that it also helps with being able to praise those.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But, okay. Yet, these also were godly people whose virtues will not be forgotten. Their wealth remains in their families, their heritage with their descendants. Through God's covenant with them, their family endures, and their offspring for their sakes. For all time, their progeny will last. Their glory will never be blotted out. Their bodies are buried in peace, but their name lives on and on. At gatherings, their wisdom is retold, and the assembly declares their praises. So, that's cool. Now there's a different section that we're getting into because we're actually naming people.
Yeah, and there is actually a little bit that I want to cover here. So there's a total of 12 here, I think. That's how many things they covered. Yeah, the choice of the number 12 to indicate classes of people probably derives from its general use to designate completeness, as in, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 months, so on, so on. So yeah, there are, 12 memorial stones, 12 disciples. All of these men are called devout persons, the legacy of Elyon, the Most High. And apparently the expression, those who lift up a proverb in writing, in verse 5, is peculiar, but an emendation to bemiktam, lyric, to restore a conjectured end rhyme. Tom has nothing to commend it. And then you can check page 499 of that book right there.
Yes.
Yeah, because they cite it. And that's for verse 5. Yeah, devisers of psalms according to rule, and authors of written proverbs.
Melodious equals al hok, manuscript B. M and B, MG, have al ka lyric equals be miktam, a term confined to psalm titles and conjectured for Isaiah 38:9, the Song of Hezekiah. Nobody knows the actual meaning of the word, but its presence here against manuscript B, G, and Sirach, Bikatab in writing, which conflicts with authors, equals nosee, referring to a vocal activity, is guaranteed by an elaborate end rhyme pattern in Tom, verses 1 through 8. See Basor.
Okay, well, we don't have that.
Yep.
Either way, so there's a
Quick,
new
get
section.
Basor.
Yeah, there is a textual note here about what we're going into now. So it's going to name Enoch first.
Yeah.
So manuscript B includes the words Nimsa Tamim, which belong in verse 17. This reference to Enoch, who is spoken of again in 49:14, is not present in the Masada fragments or Sirach, though Greek and manuscript B do have it. His popularity in the last centuries BC as the custodian of ancient lore would seem to have prompted this expansion on Ben Sira's text, putting Enoch at the head of the list of ancient ancestors.
Yeah, and what you said there about Enoch not showing up there in other manuscripts.
Yeah.
So there's a note here. An unusual aspect of this reference to Enoch sets it apart. He is said to be an example of repentance or knowledge. The Greek text implies that Enoch's acquisition of mysteries led to pride, for which he repented. The other figures are not lifted up as examples for readers in this way. The Hebrew fragments of Sirach from Masada do not refer to Enoch, neither does the Syriac text. This evidence suggests that the remark about him may not derive from Ben Sira, although the comment on Enoch seems rather tame. one expects more lavish praise of the kind found in later speculation about heavenly journeys and remarkable wisdom. Its absence in the text from Masada and the Sirach therefore may be accidental. And then once we get through that first verse, I do have some notes.
All right.
Actually, yeah. Let me know when you get to the end. Just stop at the end of verse 18.
Okay. But I also find that interesting that Enoch had a place as a custodian of ancient lore in the last centuries BC. Like,
yeah, because I mean, just think about Enoch itself, the book of Enoch. There's definitely lots of mystical stuff in there. Lots of, you could call it lots of lore. He went on this heavenly journey, right?
Right.
So he collected all that stuff and wrote about it.
Beyond just the Book of Enoch, I mean, it seems to imply that there was a wide range of literature that referred to Enoch.
Sure.
Right.
Well, they would have probably, hooked on to the fact that in Genesis, he was, he went up with God because he was, so amazing and whatnot.
Genesis 5:24.
Oh, is that it? Is that what you just
It's
read
in
there?
the note.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Enoch walked with the Lord and was taken up, a sign for the knowledge of future generations. And
Yes.
now the rest of this section is in another section in the Anchor Bible.
Yeah, a sign of knowledge to every generation.
Yep. Noah, the just man, found...
Yeah, so the one verse there to Enoch.
Yeah. Noah, the just man, found without reproach in the time of destruction, kept the race alive. Because of his worth, there were survivors, and with a pledge to him, the deluge ended. A lasting sign sealed the assurance to him that never should all flesh be destroyed.
Yeah, so the... Talk about the flood, talking about the rainbow there to symbolize the covenant. So the note here, if the praise really starts with Noah, and if verse 16 constitutes a later addition, the entire section begins and ends with the founders of civilization, Noah and Adam.
Abraham, father of many peoples, kept his glory without stain. He obeyed the Most High's command and entered into a covenant with him. In his own flesh the ordinance was incised, and when tested, he was found steadfast. Binding of Isaac.
Yeah.
For this reason, God promised him with an oath to bless the nations through his descendants, to make him numerous as the grains of dust, and exalt his posterity like the stars, giving them an inheritance from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth.
From sea to shining sea, that's America for you.
Yeah.
So the note here on the binding of Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
So the test that Abraham passed alludes to Genesis 22, 1 through 9. 1 through 19, which is specifically called a divine test. Later traditionists developed various features of this incident, interpreting the binding of Isaac as an atonement for sins.
Yeah. Okay. For Isaac, too, he renewed that promise because of Abraham, his father. The covenant with all his forebears God fulfilled for him, and the blessing rested upon the head of Israel. God acknowledged him as the firstborn and gave him his inheritance. He fixed the boundaries for his tribes and their division into 12. So that is a reference to the tribes of Israel.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do a count here. That's interesting. So it gives 1 verse to Enoch, 2 verses to Noah,
Okay.
3 verses to Abraham.
Well, you have to remember the verse division is also later.
Yeah. But it's interesting that they do it that way. From him.
Astute observation.
Yeah.
Your counting skills.
1, 2, 3.
Exceed us all.
1, 2, 3.
Bad.
You know,
50.
he does that more often than he really should be doing that.
Yeah.
Any amount.
Yeah.
Counting.
Like that?
Yeah. Well, hopefully it doesn't get us demonetized.
Come on.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure we will be.
Yeah. We're still in chapter 44, but
Although I do have
another section, and it's the last verse, last part of a verse.
Yeah, last part of a verse. And also I do have a textual note here for verse 22. And that's and also Isaac did he establish likewise. That's that one there. So, the Hebrew text verse 22 reads son, but the margin has in like manner. For Isaac did not have a son for Abraham's sake. Curiously, Ben Sira says nothing about Joseph at this juncture, and this omission accords with this patriarch's minor role in subsequent tradition. Really sad for Joseph. Joseph did, he tried real hard, you know?
Poor Joseph.
Yeah. I mean, he was really giving it a shot.
From him he had spring the man who should win the favor of all the living. That's the end of chapter 44.
And he brought out from him a man of mercy who found grace in the sight of all living. And the thing is, maybe for a time it was the sight of all living because he killed some people.
Yeah. So 23 FG.
I don't think they found it very graceful.
Latin, Syriac, and Ethiopic, following a faulty Lucianic Greek text, read these 2 kola as referring to more than one person, Moses and Aaron, maybe, and as belonging with the preceding lines, that chapter 45 begins in the middle of a sentence in the standard numbering of the Greek verses, followed here as elsewhere, is a consequence of this.
You know, once we hop into this next chapter, you got some very interesting commentary to discuss.
Yes. Well, if you're enjoying the stream so far, give us a like, comment, subscribe, follow us.
Share it around.
Yes.
You know, get some people in here. Help us out by clicking the buttons that we want you to click. You know, just do the thing and look out for that ribbon. There you go.
Yes, and if you do the thing, then you'll be doing a good job as our apostles.
Yeah, you will be. All right, let's continue, shall we? So this is now chapter 45.
Yes, the first kola of each of 1 through 3D are, and nearly all of verse 3 CD are largely eaten away in manuscript B.
Yeah, so it seems like there's this one's very mixed.
Yes.
Beloved of God and men was Moses of happy memory, and he made him glorious as God and made him mighty in awe-inspiring deeds. I think there should be a note there on verse 2 about the translation of the word God.
In Eerdmans?
The NIB.
In the NIB.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just
Should
getting
be
my
right there in the
place here.
top left.
Top left. Verse 2.
Yeah.
The Greek translation weakens the comparison of Moses to God, rendering Elohim as angels in verse 2.
Yeah.
Yep. So that sucks.
Yeah, they really just downplayed it in the Greek. They're like, no, it can't really say God. It's got to say angels.
Yep, because Elohim can't possibly mean God or gods.
Yeah. By his words, he caused wonders to happen in quick succession, And he made him bold in the presence of the king.
His glorification before kings plainly refers to his confrontation before Pharaoh in Exodus 7:1-7 and throughout chapters 7-10.
Yeah. And he gave him a charge unto the people and showed him his glory. For his faithfulness and his meekness he chose him out of all flesh and caused him to hear his voice. And let him draw nigh unto the dark cloud. And he placed in his hand the commandment, even the law of life and discernment.
So verse 5 concerns his ascent to Mount Sinai to receive the tables of the commandments.
Tables? It doesn't say tablets?
Nope, it says tables.
Okay.
I would say
I
tablets.
understand how
What
they're
else?
tables.
I mean, I get that too, but like tablets is just better, sorry.
Yeah, weird. Of the commandments in Exodus 19. The emphasis here is clearly on the law rather than on Israel's deliverance from Egypt, which is not mentioned, nor is there any mention of the Passover.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, they talk about the wonders happening in quick succession. So, I mean, he acknowledges that it happens, but it's definitely more about the law, because even when praising Moses, you find Sirach praising the law. Yeah, that he might teach statutes unto Jacob and his testimonies and judgments unto Israel. Of course, they're Jacob, probably just referring to Israel.
Yeah.
Because Jacob is dead. Oh, and then this next one is on Aaron. Now, he spends a lot of time on Aaron, but that's mostly because of his how much he cares about the priesthood. And the Aaronite priesthood was just huge. It
says about 6 AB. Manuscript B compresses 2 cola into 1 and lacks some words that are supposed by Greek.
Oh, okay.
It is possible that the name of Aaron was first mentioned only in verse 20, and that its addition here in Greek, Syriac, and Manuscript B has unbalanced the cola and the lines.
Well, I guess we will see. Oh, and it looks like once we even get to verse 20, things are all out of whack there again, but that's just not something new for Ben Sira.
Yeah.
And he exalted a holy one like unto him, even Aaron of the tribe of Levi, and made him an eternal ordinance, and bestowed upon him his majesty. And, of course, if we're talking about the division, you know, it's kind of weird that it would be here, right? Because if we're talking about... we talked earlier about the 12 tribes... And now we're getting to, and we already went through Moses and his whole spiel, and now his brother Aaron.
Yep.
Although I feel like it should kind of, if you're referring to their lot, right? You know what the Levites got. It was just. They were the priests. That was basically because they didn't get any inheritance of land. Their inheritance was worship at the temple, and they were the ones that could mediate between God and man.
Well, the priests are a special class, and from my scan over, it looks like when he's talking about Aaron, it is just like a stand-in for the priest figure. Yeah,
because priests were very important. Yeah, and he made him an eternal ordinance and bestowed upon him his majesty, and he blessed him with his glory and girded him with. This is old, kind of outdated English here. Beauteous, I don't know. Beauteous. Magnificence. Wow. Glad that's nobody's using that term anymore. And he clothed him with the perfection of adornment and adorned him with splendid vestments. And now we're talking about, the priesthood proper, all the stuff that they had to wear.
Yeah, tell me when you get to the end of verse 13.
Okay. The breeches, the tunic, and the robe, and encompassed him with pomegranates and with resounding bells round about, to make music with his steps, so as to cause the sound of him to be heard in the inmost shrine, for a memorial for the children of his people, with the holy garments of gold and violet and purple, the work of the designer, and the breastplate of judgment, and the ephod and waistcloth, and the scarlet, the work of the weaver, with precious stones seal engraven, in settings, the work of the stone engraver, for a memorial in graven writing, according to the number of the tribes of Israel, with a crown of pure gold upon his meter. I don't know. Mitre?
It's his head.
Yeah.
I get that's probably his head, but that's the word that's used here.
Yeah.
The diadem engraven, holy to Jehovah, glorious majesty and mighty praise, the desire of the eyes, goodly and beautiful. Before him there never were such things. Never did a stranger put them on. He trusted him and his sons only, and his sons throughout their generations. So yeah, that is the end of verse 13, and the reference there, of course, being to the Levites themselves and the Aaronid priesthood.
Yeah. So Ben Sirach omits the girdle. So they're basically copying this description from Exodus 28 and 29. Ben Sirach omits the girdle while emphasizing such decorative features as pomegranates, the golden bell, embroidery of various kinds, precious stones, and a gold crown. He thinks of the bells as a reminder to the people, unless the Hebrew implies that the sound calls God's attention to the people, for whom the high priest makes intercession in the Holy of Holies. This whole description throws little light on the nature of the ephod, which seems to have been a sort of apron with a pouch for holding the Urim and the Thummim, the sacred stones. These garments could not be worn by outsiders, in verse 13, although soon after Ben Sirach made his claim, the office of high priest became a prize to be granted by Antiochus IV to the highest bidder. See 2 Maccabees 4:7 through 8, 23 through 27. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Now, what we're getting into, tell me when you get to the end of verse 17.
Okay. His meal offering is wholly consumed twice every day as a continual sacrifice. I think there's actually a name here that's listed in one of those commentaries for that. That's for verse 14, the twice a day.
First, Ben Sirach refers to the 2 daily offerings called Tamid in his time.
Tamid, okay. Moses consecrated him and anointed him with the holy oil, and it became for him an eternal covenant, and for his seed as the days of heaven, to minister and to execute the priest's office for him, and to bless his people in his name. Now, they should be doing this the whole time.
Yeah.
He chose him out of all living to bring near the burnt offerings and the fat pieces, and to burn a sweet savor and a memorial, and to make atonement for the children of Israel. And as we have learned, of course, he does like the smell of meat. This is a Genesis for you.
Certain kinds of meat.
Yeah. They have to be clean.
Including locusts?
No,
No, that's kosher. It's kosher to eat some locusts.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it was in
Was it?
laws, yeah.
About eating locusts? I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, that was the end of 16. You said you wanted to read something out of 16 or 17?
17.
Okay. And he gave them his commandments and invested him with authority over statute and judgment, that he might teach his people statutes and judgments unto the children of Israel.
So, verses 14 through 17 are describing priestly duties, and 18 through 22 mention the rewards for faithful service. But this bit, it says, the instructional responsibility comes in verse 17, and nothing is said of the renderings of judgment by means of the sacred Urim and Thummim. Instead, Ben Sira mentions a heinous conspiracy, the offerings of strange fire by Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, Numbers 16:1 through 17:15, as a contrast to Aaron's faithfulness. Ben Sira concludes by referring to the legitimate portion of offerings that belong to the priestly functionaries, a kind of compensation for the omission of the tribe of Levi during the allocation of the land of the 12 tribes.
Yeah, and you could say that it was a kind of compensation, but like, okay, so I get how the actual, getting a bunch of food is compensation. But I still feel like, they were kind of screwed. I'm sure they wanted some land.
Yeah, surely.
And not be effectively, quote unquote forced.
Yeah, and they're going to be mentioning the Korah stuff.
Yeah, that one was
upcoming.
A really weird story, and there's a reason scholars think that one was initially two different narratives, because that one was really weird to understand.
Yeah. So tell me when you get to the end of verse 22.
Okay. But strangers were incensed against him, and were envious against him in the wilderness. The men of Dathan and Abiram, and the company of Korah, in the violence of their wrath. And Jehovah saw it, and was angered, and consumed them in his fierce wrath. And he brought to pass a sign upon them, and he devoured them with his fiery flame. And he increased his glory unto Aaron, and gave him his inheritance, the holy contributions for their sustenance. And then, so that was verse 20 there.
Yeah.
But then so it goes verse 20, then 21a, and then 20d, and then 21b. So it's another one of those.
I'm going to look at that. 20c through 21b. The order of the Kola follows Greek. The sequence in manuscript B is 20c, 21a, 20d, 21b. And of these, the first two are damaged in the manuscript. So.
Gotcha. So anyways. The fire offerings of Jehovah they might eat. The bread of the presence is his portion. And the gift sacrifice for him and for his seed. Only in the land of the people might he have no heritage, and in their midst divide no inheritance, whose portion and inheritance is Jehovah, in the midst of the children of Israel. That's the end of 22.
Okay, so there was a bit in here about the Zadokites.
Yeah. So the Zadokites were an offshoot of the the priesthood.
Yeah. And it suggests that the rivalry between the Zadokites and the Aaronites have been settled, with Zadokites now incorporated into the line of Aaron. The HB mentions an eternal covenant with Phinehas, not with Aaron. Numbers 25:12 through 13.
Yeah, and also Phinehas gets way more attention here in the next section.
Under King David, the Zadokites gained sole control of priestly duties and privileges. Presumably, it was difficult to trace the lineage of Aaron.
Well, yeah, and also, yeah, it said, I think it was in Chronicles, it said where Zadok was placed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the priesthood.
Oh.
Either way, let's talk about Phineas, shall we?
Yeah.
For the last section of this chapter.
So the following section jumps over Aaron's son Eleazar in favor of the grandson Phineas,
Mm-hmm.
as if to settle the dispute over priestly lineage once and for all. The struggle for control of the priesthood by the Onaiads and the Tobiads illuminates this particular observation. The Onaiads were related to Aaron on the paternal side, but the Tobiads laid claim to Aaronite ancestry through the maternal side.
So if you remember these two groups, I think we were reading, it was in 1st and 2nd Maccabees, and they were, they were mentioned there as being rival groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this rivalry occurred in the early 2nd century BCE, according to this commentary.
Mm. Moreover, Phineas, the son of Eleazar, was glorious in might as a third, and of course that's the whole grandson thing, third in line, in that he was jealous for the God of all, and stood in the breach of his people, while his heart prompted him, and he made atonement for the children of Israel. Therefore also for him he established an ordinance, a covenant of peace to maintain the sanctuary, that to him and to his seed should appertain the high priesthood forever. And also with David was his covenant, the son of Jesse of the tribe of Judah. The inheritance of the king is his sons alone. Trying to say that it goes down according to the family.
Yeah, verse 25 suggests that Davidic kingship was transmitted by direct succession to a single son.
Yeah.
Whereas the priestly heritage belongs to all of Aaron's descendants.
Yeah. While the inheritance of Aaron belongs to him and to his seed. And now bless ye Jehovah the good, who hath crowned you with honor. May he grant you wisdom of heart to judge his people in righteousness, that your prosperity may never cease, nor your power for eternal generations.
Yeah, it says, so it does this royal succession being limited to David's line thing. Mm-hmm. But it says here that there hadn't been leaders of David's lineage for many generations.
Yeah, seriously.
Great.
Yeah, but that happens a lot. And the whole thing with the dynastic promise it really did not work out very well. Yeah. Either way, that is the end of chapter 45.
If you're enjoying the stream so far, give us a like, subscribe, comment, share it with your friends, family, neighbors, countrymen. Send it to your church. Do what you gotta do.
There is legitimate full readings of apocryphal and biblical texts. You can hear them here.
It's here, yeah.
Yeah, that part's not against God. If you like God, yeah, go listen to this. That's still there.
Yep. Share it with your priest.
Also, even though priests usually priests,
you know what sucks?
What?
That Christian priests don't wear these vestments.
Oh yeah.
They should.
They would look way fancier in that.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
That I grew up with they wore vestments.
Did they wear gold crowns and
pomegranates with bells on them? And
depends on the holiday.
I don't recall ever seeing a Christian priest like that. No.
No, that's too bad. You're right. That'd be neat.
Yeah. Here's the thing about priests and people who go to seminary in general. They actually, read through commentaries just like this. They kind of, have to effectively. So they're very educated about the topics. But then they don't really tell that many people about it. Very rarely do they go into it.
Oh yeah. No, there's no Catholic priest alive who's gonna reveal that they're not of an Aaronid lineage.
Oh my God. Well,
And-
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But, there's a lot of information that people cover while they're learning about it that they never bring up. They have no intention to talk about, who was it, Elisha, when he got made fun of for being bald.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure someone's done something on that because that's like there. But I mean,
But like 90% of preachers aren't going to talk about it.
I mean, the scholarship behind it. Like I haven't. I don't think that just a regular pastor in Sunday school would, or during mass or something.
Well, surely they're not going to talk about the textual history.
No, but that's the thing I'm saying is that they are educated in that stuff. But like, I feel like some of that stuff might be important to talk about, especially if you're doing an interpretation of something. It might be important to know the textual history of it.
Yeah, but they don't want to encourage critical thinking about the subject.
Yeah, which is weird because, like, if they went through that kind of critical thinking and
that's all I do.
No, here's the thing: if they went through that critical thinking and maintained their faith, then why should, if they present it in the right way, it shouldn't be an issue.
Well, maybe they came from a specific lineage.
Yeah, maybe it was that. Yep, totally.
Guys, what got me kicked out of Sunday school was critical thinking and asking too many questions. It's literally, that's what got me kicked out.
Wow.
Apparently they hate that. Every Sunday school. They hate it always.
I got to take a biology break.
Wow.
But why don't you entertain them with your stories of Sunday school and getting kicked out?
Yes. Go ahead, Chris.
That was it.
That was it.
I
Your
didn't wanna
whole story.
Elaborate. It's not much of a story other than that's how I got kicked out. I do recall throwing a Bible once and saying I'd never go back to church or something like that. And then I never went back to church.
Really not surprised that you did that.
Yeah, I didn't throw it at anyone. I just dropped it on the ground.
I know, but that still sounds like something you would just do now. Just cause.
Still? Yeah, probably. You're right. I'm a bit chaotic. I mean, I enjoy doing some stuff for fun.
You're saying you haven't changed much since you were a child.
I would say that I agree with the decisions that I made in my life because I'm incredibly skeptical still, and I don't feel that the amount of knowledge has accumulated to the point where that decision was rendered as stupid because it was out of skepticism. So.
Yeah, to show your skepticism.
I threw it and left.
You threw it.
And left. Yeah. I think I said I'd never roam again or something like that.
Never roam again?
Oh, lordy, lordy, like that. I said it all fancy like, I'll never roam again, and then just threw the Bible and said, fuck it, I'm out of here. I was like 13. I remember that.
Oh, okay.
I'm in an age range where I can empathize with my current position.
You're still 13.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, we all had points of extreme growth mentally at some point, and that was at least the most recent massive change for me. Not to suggest that I haven't attempted to grow in other ways or learned more, but...
And while Ruben is, taking his biology break...
Jeez, it's a long one.
It really is. He took a biology break before the show, too. But either way, beforehand, on Thursday, you guys are going to be getting a video on the Council of Ephesus. I cover, what happened at the Council of Ephesus, the Christologies involved, the political situation, stuff people might want to know about. There's some really cool Christologies that are discussed, some really neat understandings of that. And, it's something I don't really... I understand that, a lot of these things were covered in the past 2,000 years, but I still feel like it would be interesting to see more people talking about Christologies in general. I'm a fan of Christologies.
Most people simplify it down to Jesus died for your sins so you can go to heaven.
There is that simplification, but that's not a Christology. Although a Christology could be derived from it. For example, was it Jesus that died for my sins, or was it the Logos?
No, it was Jesus. It says it in the Bible.
Yeah, but so was it the man Jesus died? What happened to the Logos? Was it still there? Did it die too?
One would assume that the abstract concept of the Logos isn't subject to terms like life and death.
You would think, exactly. So how was the nature of Jesus to be understood? Was it an indwelling? Like, did the Logos take over part of the soul of Jesus? Did it take over part of the mind of Jesus? How is that's Christology.
Well, you could.
I love Christology.
I mean, you could go the guru route, right? When he says the only way to the Lord is through me, he's speaking in the royal me. He's not saying literally me, Jesus, son of Mary.
No,
Joseph.
Jesus.
Right, and also when he says through me, who is he talking about when he says me? Is he talking about the man Jesus or the Logos? Which one's talking?
He's a portal
he would be
directly to
talking-
God, and he's saying literally you have to walk through him to enter the afterlife. No one
of
else has
course,
gotten there yet.
It's a royal me. So a logos being an abstract form or concept that is, participated in by human beings engaging in.
Oh, it's just one. You're participated in the Holy Spirit,
Oh, yeah,
not in the
okay.
Logos. Oh.
Well, that's a Holy Spiritology. Yeah, and I have my contentions with it.
Okay.
So is there a separate field for Holy Spirit studies?
I'm sure there is, but I do not know the name of it.
And
Man, this is one hell of an aside.
Yeah, it was.
I love it,
It's a
but
damn biology break. How about you fucking read the next chapter?
I'm going to read the next chapter, which is about Joshua, Caleb, the judges, and Samuel.
Yeah, lots of stuff.
All right. Valiant conqueror was Joshua, son of Nun, aide to Moses in the prophetic office, formed to be, as his name implies, the great savior of God's chosen ones, wreaking vengeance on the enemy and giving to Israel their inheritance.
So I think there's a pun in here somewhere. I think I remember.
As his name implies.
Yeah. Sirach makes clear the pun on his name in the Hebrew. Yehoshua is composed of Yeho, short for Yahweh, which also Yah was short for Yahweh. A couple of them there. And Yeshua from the root Yasha, he saved. Thus, the Lord is Savior. There's the pun for you.
Okay.
ha!
Ha ha ha. What a funny
Lyrical
joke.
wordsmith.
Ben Sira. Yep. What glory was his when he raised his hand to brandish his sword against a city?
Oh, also, one thing. I don't know if it's pronounced properly, but Soli, I'm going to go with that. It's taped. We're obviously taped.
Yeah, we're obviously taped solely.
Yeah. It's really an incredible technology that we've
God
developed.
Damn it, Lawrence. Now he's going to use that as one of those Christian lines. Well, you can never trust atheists to tell the truth.
I mean, maybe, but I
Yep.
feel like that'd be pretty petty.
Yeah, it would be pretty petty.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyways, who could withstand him when he fought the battles of the Lord? Was it not at his same hand the sun stopped, so that one day became like two?
Stopping
Yeah.
of the sun. Yeah.
Yep. We remember we had Landon on for that, didn't we?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Watch the Atheist Sunday School episode about that if you're interested. Don't read the Bible portion about it. Yep. Anyways, he called upon the Most High God when he was hard pressed with enemies on every side, and God Most High gave answer to him with the driving force of glistening hail, which he rained down upon the hostile army, till on the slope he destroyed the foe, that all the doomed nations might know that the Lord was watching over his people's battles, and because he was a devoted follower of God, and in Moses' time showed himself loyal, he and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, when they opposed the rebel assembly, averted God's anger from the people and suppressed the wicked compliant. You don't get mentions of Caleb that often.
Yeah, not really. Very even though him and Joshua were the only two people from, the Exodus that were able to enter the land, Caleb gets very little attention.
Mm-hmm. He's got a few verses here and there. Joshua gets his own storyline.
Well, yeah.
It's huge. Right?
Very important.
Yep. But I guess Caleb just wasn't that important. Anyways, because of this, those two alone were spared of the 600,000 infantry to lead the people into their inheritance, the land flowing with milk and honey. Israel.
Yeah, and 600,000.
Yep, or Canaan.
Yeah.
The strength God gave to Caleb remained with him even in his old age, till he won his way unto the summits of the land, so that his family too received an inheritance, that all the people of Jacob might know how good it is to be a devoted follower of the Lord. So that's all we get about Caleb.
Yeah.
Great. It's much the same. We get all this stuff about Joshua and then a few sentences about Caleb.
Yeah, although, to be fair, we didn't actually get that much to Joshua either.
Well, I mean,
Noah
we got
how
a
many?
little bit.
Two?
Yeah, it's...
well, the first, 5 verses.
In this section, there's definitely more about Joshua than Caleb, but it's not, really that much more.
Yeah.
It's bias.
I doubt we're going to get any more mentions of Caleb.
I mean, how much more could you really do? This is, he's not going to go on for 8 chapters about Caleb.
He said more about the unnamed people than he did about Caleb.
And how? Maybe he's saying something about Caleb. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe that's the joke.
Anyways, we're getting into the judges now.
Yeah.
The judges, too, each one of them, whose hearts were not deceived, who did not abandon God, may their memory be ever blessed. Their bones flourish with new life where they lie.
So,
and their name receives fresh luster in their children.
Yes. So the remark about their bones flourishing implies that ancient Israelites believed that bones, like roots, could extend themselves vigorously. Cross-reference the vision of dry bones in Ezekiel 37 and the story in 2 Kings 13:21 about the power of Elisha's bones to revive a corpse. Yeah, that's when, they threw his bones into a hole and there was a body there, and then the body came back to life.
Magic.
Well, I mean,
20th
it wouldn't even really be the
cleric.
same as magic because magic involves different things.
Like shipping and handling.
But it's definitely, it's definitely supernatural.
Yep. Honored among people, dear to his maker, pledged in a vow from his mother's womb, as one consecrated to the Lord in the prophetic office, was Samuel, the judge who offered sacrifice. At God's word, he established the kingdom, and he anointed princes to rule the people. That is not what happened.
Well, he
did.
He did 2 of them.
No, at the people's word, he consulted God about having a king. But it wasn't where David had the census literally commanded for him to do.
Right.
This is it wasn't at God's command.
Right, but the appointing of those specific people were at God's command.
Yeah.
Also, there was an interesting note here that kind of wished David was on here for this show because he could have told us a hell of a lot more on this. This is very interesting. So, as a footnote for the whole thing about the bones extending, the cross-reference the Semitic ritual of pouring water on the bones of ancestors. Apparently, Osterley writes about that at some point. But yeah, apparently that was a thing.
Weird.
I mean, I'm sure they didn't think that they literally sprouted or something.
Yeah,
but
their bones flourish.
Again,
with
take
new
it literally.
life where they lie. Strange. By the law of the Lord, he judged the assembled folk.
and he made the rounds of the settlements of Jacob. As a trustworthy seer, he was sought out, and his message proved him a true prophet. He, too, called upon God when he was hard-pressed with enemies on every side, and offered up a suckling lamb. Then the Lord thundered from heaven, and the tremendous blast of his voice resounded. He brought low the rulers of the enemy, and destroyed all the lords of the Philistines. When Samuel approached the end of his life, he testified before the Lord and his anointed prince. No bribe or secret gift have I ever taken from anyone, and no one could gainsay him. Even after his death, his guidance was sought, which of Endor, right? Yeah. And made known to the king his fate, and from the grave he raised his voice as a prophet to put an end to wickedness. That is what happened.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that Australia's translation is, and he lifted his voice from the earth instead of the grave. But of course, that could be synonymous. So, one note here on verse 19. So in verse 19, his anointed signifies the Lord's choice of King Saul rather than the Messiah of Christian times. And of course, this Messiah is just anointed one. And he was very clearly anointed. He was anointed in the narrative.
Yeah, literally.
Multiple people were.
Yeah. So that is actually the end of chapter 46. If you're enjoying the stream so far, like, comment, subscribe, share it around, do what you got to do.
Yeah. All that good stuff that YouTubers enjoy.
And it's my favorite number coming up next, folks.
Yep.
Really?
Yep, that's my favorite number.
47?
47.
47 is your favorite number. All right. Anyways. So now we're going to be talking about David and then Solomon and then some other people.
More anonymous folk?
No.
Oh, some distinct folk.
Definitely not anonymous folk.
So we're all familiar with David.
Actually, a little bit of anonymous folk.
Yes.
Either way, David. And furthermore, after him stood up Nathan, that was the prophet, to stand in the presence of David. For as the fat is separated from the offspring, so was David separated from Israel. So they took the good part from the rest of it.
So Ben Sira refers to Nathan, who stood before David. According to the Hebrew, the Greek has prophesized in the days of David.
Which would be what stood before him would mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So even if it's an improper, even if the word is improper, it is what it means. He played with lions as with kids, and with bears as with calves of Bashan.
Yes, lambs of the flock, bulls of Bashan is as incredible here as
lambs of the flock.
Yeah, with
what's the verse 3 in there?
He made sport of lions as though they were kids.
Yeah,
and of bears like lambs of the flock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
as with calves of Bashan. All right.
It says bulls of Bashan is as incredible here as the 3 lines out of 4 in the same manuscript beginning with Wigam. Oh, apparently that means something to someone, but I guess B'nai Bashan, bulls of Bashan is not correct.
It was Bene, B-E-N-E.
B-E-N-E, yes.
So it'd be sons.
It might be a different E because you have E and then you have A, which can also be an E.
Okay.
It's Hebrew.
You can say the Hebrew thing.
Yeah, well, I'd have to do
draw it out and
an A or an E or an A.
Okay.
I could get some extremely sophisticated tracking software and we could have drawn it out.
But you don't have
using
that.
a dated Xbox One thing.
Yeah.
We could have done that. And then you could have seen it on the screen. Oh my gosh.
That would have been
We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
nifty.
Well, the only commentary that I see here about it is from the story about David's defeat of Goliath. Ben-Sira chooses several incidents, particularly his skill in killing lions and bears, here euphemistically called play.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not really doesn't really tell us much.
Yeah.
That's sad. In his youth, he slew the giant and took away the reproach from the people when he slung his hand with the sling and broke the pride of Goliath. For he called unto God Most High, and he gave strength to his right hand, that it might strike down the man experienced in wars, and that he might lift up the horn of his people. Therefore the daughters sang of him and honored him, the slayer of 10,000.
Yep.
He had his tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands.
Get your shirts at
Yeah,
our Teespring
your
site.
Breaking Bad type Milwaukee Atheist shirts.
Yeah, those are on there for you.
Yep.
You're welcome. When he had put on the diadem, he fought and subdued the enemy round about. And he put cities among the Philistines and break in pieces their power unto this day. So still the Philistines are not in power at the beginning of the second
they're
century
still not.
BCE.
What verse
I know
is
they're
that?
still not. That was verse 7.
And subdued the enemy on every side. He campaigned against the hostile Philistines and broke their power till our own day. It says,
Yeah, it's like it's an unto this day thing.
Wahian be pelistim arim. The verb in manuscript B is regularly read witten, but the tau is more likely cheth. The verb hnh in camp is used. Am I supposed to say that?
Or
H&H.
and the
Yeah, in camp is used by Ben-Sira elsewhere, though not in a hostile sense. With B following, it takes on the meaning campaign against, Judges 9:50, which is called for in the present context. Arim, Aramaizing from Sarim, occurs in later Hebrew and Jewish Aramaic in the meaning enemies, here hostile. If correct, here compare 37:5 where it's intrusive. It could be a play on Aralim, uncircumcised, the usual epithet for the Philistines, but it is more likely an error in transmission.
as is tradition.
Yeah.
I mean, as is transmission.
Yeah.
In all his doings he gave thanks unto God Most High with words and in glory. With his whole heart he loved his Maker, and sang praise every day continually. Stringed instruments and song before the altar he ordained. And of course, we've already had the reference to the instruments of David, haven't we? I feel like we have
Oh, for sure.
earlier on.
Well, we've had references to like lyricists and stuff.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's true. I guess that wasn't specifically David. To make sweet melody with their music, he gave comeliness to the feasts and set in order the seasons to perfection. That's a weird one.
Yeah, that is really weird.
I'm guessing the holidays.
Probably, but usually you would hear that attributed to like Yahweh.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
something.
I would probably guess that means like, holidays and holy weeks, shit like that, like festivals.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Thank you. Thanks for that. While they praised his holy name, before morning it resounded from the sanctuary. Moreover, Jehovah put away his transgression and lifted up his horn forever. And he gave him the decree of the kingdom and established his throne over Israel, but only temporarily. Yeah. Let's not forget. And also, it's interesting that Ben-Sira's not talking about David's sin, right? Because David's big sin was the census.
Yeah, there's a note on this. It says, not until the final verse of the section on David does Ben-Sira acknowledge David's sins. and then only generally as a recipient of divine pardon.
Yeah, so he put away his transgressions.
Yeah, it says, like the chronicler who does not even mention David's adultery with Bathsheba and the murder of Uriah.
Yeah, you remember that? Where he killed the dude?
I remember.
And then he married his wife or whatever.
Yep.
Not going to
Gross.
forget that.
After all, Ben Sira prefers to dwell on David's virtues. After all, the genre requires praise rather than blame. Okay.
Yeah, that is accurate. Can't say that's not.
This is
what he's going after.
praise givings, not shitting on. Yeah.
Shitting. Praise givings, not shitting ons.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And now we're going into Solomon.
Was that verse 11?
That was verse 11, yeah.
Okay. So when he turned to Solomon, because of David's achievements, Solomon reigned in an age of peace with secure borders and thus had time to build the temple in Jerusalem.
Yeah, so they're basically saying that the only reason he had this good reign was because David was just so good that he set him up for success.
Oh, we all know that David was not that great. And
Well, he had
actually,
military victories and secured the
Militarily
borders.
speaking. Yeah, militarily
Yeah,
speaking.
I mean, they say what he was good at, and that's all they're going to say.
yeah, he was good at killing people.
He was very good at that.
Real good at that.
But Solomon's like the main dude. He's the wise king who builds the temple
Gets
and
all the credit
has all
in
the
the
gold.
future, even long after his death.
Exactly. So now David, or Ben Sira, is kind of crediting all of that success even
Mhm.
to David.
Okay.
Because he's saying it's because of all that good stuff that
Yeah.
David did, that Solomon was able to do to accomplish any of that.
Well, why don't you read the section?
I will. And for his sake there stood up after him a wise son dwelling in safety. Solomon reigned in days of peace, and God gave him rest round about. He prepared a house for his name and established a sanctuary forever. Nope. How wise wast thou in thy youth, and overflowed. Oh my God, hold on. Overflowedst like the Nile with instruction. Thou didst cover the earth with thy soul, and didst gather songs in the height. Thy name reached unto the isles afar off, and for thy peace thou wast beloved. By thy songs, parables, dark speeches, and satires, thou didst astonish the peoples. So yeah, he was not only a wise man, he was also, was he also, are they calling him a musician here too, or a singer or something?
Well, he would be talented in
He would be
many ways.
He was also an entertainer.
Yes.
That's what he was. He was an entertainer.
He could do it all.
Yeah. Anyways,
What verse is that?
that was 17.
Let me see if they have a note in this one on it, because there's not in those.
Fair enough.
According to 1 Kings 5:12, Solomon uttered 3,000 proverbs and
Yes.
composed 1,005 songs.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything about the dark speeches?
That
I'm
would
guessing that's-
presumably be like riddles, right?
Oh, maybe
because
it's
when
riddles,
it
yeah.
was like dark phrases, it was like confusing stuff.
I guess, yeah. Shrouded in darkness, yeah.
We've seen that before.
We have, yeah. Thou wast called by the glorious name which is called over Israel. Thou didst heap up gold like tin, and didst multiply silver like lead.
Yeah, and we know that there was a copper mine in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure about gold, but I guess copper's kind of...
Well, he's just talking
if we're
about the
talking
amounts of riches they accumulated during this period.
Yeah, if we're-
Remember how silver was worthless
He got
to
massive...
Solomon's?
Yeah, he got massive donations
Yeah.
from the Queen of Sheba.
That too.
Yeah, it says here, the legendary traditions in 1 Kings also speak of huge sums of gold and silver that the king amassed from distant lands. And Ben Sira does not overlook this feature in Solomon's fame, despite the condemnation in Deuteronomy 17:17 of such royal practice. Only with verse 19 does Ben Sira allow himself to mention Solomon's weakness for women, which we'll get to.
Yeah, in fact, we're getting to that right now.
Yep.
But thou gavest thy loins unto women, and didst cause them to rule over thy body.
Yeah.
You became a cuck.
Yeah, I was like,
you became a bitch.
You were whipped.
The author of 1 Kings 11, 1 through 10 faults him for this. See also Proverbs 31, 3. Give not your vigor to women, but nor your strength to women who ruin kings. Mm-hmm. Curiously, Ben Sira ignores the other complaints in 1 Kings 11, 1 through 13, the sin of idolatry, which we know he adopted his wife's gods.
He did. And then later we're going to talk about Jeroboam and Rehoboam. And, Ben Sira has a generally good view of them too, which is weird considering Jeroboam was the guy who put up the 2 golden calves.
Yep.
Either way.
These are your gods.
Yep. Yea, thou broughtest a blemish upon thine honor, and didst defile thy bed, so as to bring wrath upon thy progeny, and sighing concerning thy couch.
You pissed your bed. I don't know. That's what I'm getting.
I also am not 100%.
What verse is that?
That's 20.
You brought a stain upon your glory, shame upon your marriage bed, wrath upon your descendants, and groaning upon your deathbed.
Ah, okay. Okay, so he's going to be ashamed. So the people became 2 scepters, and from Ephraim arose a sinful kingdom. That's Israel.
Yeah.
Because Ephraim was the ancient capital.
So finish verse 22, and I'll do some commentary.
Nevertheless, God did not forsake his mercy, and suffered not any of his words to fall to the ground. He will not cut off the posterity of his chosen, and the offspring of him that love him he will not destroy. And he gave to Jacob a remnant, and to the house of David a root from him. That's 22.
Okay, so according to the Anchor Bible commentary, it says that the 3 bicola of 47:22 expressed the messianic hope of Ben Sira's day, which I thought was interesting. But moreover, it says Solomon's rule is seen as responsible for the division of the kingdom into 2, Israel, here called Ephraim, and Judah. Since Solomon was the hero of the wisdom tradition, both Proverbs and the apocryphal wisdom of Solomon, which we'll have to do, were attributed to his patronage. It is surprising, and much to Sirach's credit, that he gives such an objective view of him. But I don't know about that.
Yeah, because it's kind of weird, though, right? Because, so in one part, when talking about David, he doesn't even mention what his sins were. Mm-hmm. But and that's because it's a song of praise, right?
Yeah.
But now he is referencing quite a lot the sins of Solomon. But it doesn't matter if it's a praise or not. So I think that the genre didn't really matter to him. I don't think he had a genre in mind even.
Yeah, no,
this is
probably
just
not.
his opinions.
A lot
perhaps.
of authors who get grouped into genres don't have a genre in mind while they're writing.
I mean, yeah, that is true.
Like Stephen King was trying to write fantasy books for a lot of the things that he wrote, but it gets marked as horror.
Yeah, well. And Solomon slept in Jerusalem, and left after him one that was overbearing, great in folly, and lacking in understanding, was Rehoboam, who by his counsel made the people to revolt. And I think there's a pun on the name Rehoboam or Rahab.
What verse was that?
That's 23.
That was the whole thing?
No, I'll do the whole thing.
Okay.
Until there arose, let there be no memorial of him, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who sinned and made Israel to sin, and he put a stumbling block before Ephraim. That's 23.
Yeah, so leading Israel into sin is the usual biblical phrase for deserting the Jerusalem temple. Sirach thought that this led to their exile in Assyria in 721.
That would make sense. A lot of people thought that. I think that people thought that.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But there's a bit here about the text. It says 23 AB. The line is damaged in manuscript B, which for the conventional with his ancestors of G, lacking altogether in Syriac, has a participle read by some as meoas in despair. See Kohelet 2:20. There's no certainty as to the reading. Verse 23b is missing from manuscript B after the word. 23cd line was structured by Ben Sira so that it began with Rehob, broad, and form a state of adjectives such as MT leads to level out the language, and ended with people. This provided the name of Rehoboam, Rehab-am, without actually using it.
Okay.
Though manuscripts B, G, and Syriac all read it back in explicitly and disturbed the line in so doing.
Okay, so yeah, this is one of those cases where the later interpreters tried to fix something that didn't need fixing.
Yeah, in 23EF. Here too, though manuscript B's al-Yehi lo Zeker, who should not be mentioned by name, vouched for by Syriac, though not in Greek, shows Ben Sira avoided it. The name Jeroboam ben Nebat appears in all extant forms of the text. Yeah, so it's all messy.
Yeah, as is tradition. No, actually, you know what? As is transmission.
As is transmission.
You know,
I didn't get that. The transmission was messy. What's that now?
you know what has good transmission though?
What?
Trains, which we will have none of. No trains.
No trains. No trains. We need a no trains t-shirt.
And I also think we need as is transmission t-shirt.
Okay.
Sure, but
I mean, I like it. I don't know about you, but
it hasn't gone on me yet.
okay.
I like no trains.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. To drive them from their land, and their sin became very great. And they sold themselves to do all manner of evil. They sold out. How could they?
Yep. They sold out. Well, it says they lent themselves to every evil.
They sold out.
But there's a little bit of commentary here. These verses describe the division of David, 23 through 25. Describe the division of David and Solomon's kingdom into two national states led by Rehoboam in the south and Jeroboam in the north. Ben Sira plays on the meaning of the name of the former, calling him great in folly, from Rahab, to be wide. The contrast between Solomon's wideness of heart, 1 Kings 5:9, and his son's arrogance could hardly be greater. In the Hebrew, Ben Sira omits the name Rehoboam, using instead the adjective for broad, open place, Rahab, plus the noun people, to indicate the king, whose folly consisted of increasing forced labor against the advice of his senior statesmen, 1 Kings 12, 1 through 24.
Yeah, they were looking to get out of there.
Yeah. Instead of naming Jeroboam, arch villain in the Deuteronomistic history, Ben Sira uses a clever formula. Let his name not be mentioned, al-Yehi lo Zeker. The present Hebrew text has the names of both kings written out. Jeroboam's chief offense was the construction of the two rival sanctuaries at Bethel and Dan, the southernmost and northernmost borders of the new kingdom, each featuring a golden bull.
Also, I did read a paper that pretty much argued that Dan was a later addition. That it was just Bethel. It wasn't originally Dan, because Bethel keeps getting brought up a lot in that tradition, but Dan not so much afterwards, after the first reference there. So yeah, that's what the argument boils down to, aside from some Hebrew that I couldn't fully understand. So I can't analyze that part. But yeah.
So, next time on Friday Apocryphal Podcast, we're going to be finishing Sirach, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think we will be finishing Sirach. I'm very excited to get done with this because I hate wisdom texts.
Don't
As far as it goes, hasn't been terrible, but yeah, we've had a lot of it recently.
Well, once we finish Sirach, we will see what we think overall of Sirach's wisdom. Is it wise?
I don't know. I mean, we will decide if it's wise or not. But
so far, I would give Sirach a wisdom score of 11.
Out of what?
Out of 18.
Why that?
Well, he doesn't get a positive modifier,
Oh,
but
he's getting there.
it's a little higher than average,
Wow.
but no, not high enough to get a positive modifier.
yeah, I'm not really enjoying Ben Sira too much. I mean, some parts are hilarious, but that's only because we disagree with him so strongly.
Yeah, there's some nonsense.
Yeah.
in Ben Sira. Jubilees, hopefully,
It's better.
is better. Hopefully. And of course, we have to read the Wisdom of Solomon.
Yep, that too.
Yep.
We got to read a lot of stuff. This is of course Friday Apocryphal Podcast
Your one-stop shop.
for everything Friday Apocryphal and Podcast. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you enjoyed the stream today,
Yeah, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, share it around, good stuff like that.
Patreon got all sorts of rewards on there.
Yeah, and you know what? For $1 a month, you get access to all of our video scripts, which by the way, I just posted one yesterday because on Thursday you will be getting a video on the Council of Ephesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
And for $5 a month, you can get Lawrence's book.
And other
and
books.
Future books that we self-publish.
Yeah.
Yep. And for $10 a month, you can get into a t-shirt
Monthly
giveaway.
t-shirt giveaways. They're
Yep.
great.
Well, it's randomly assigned.
It is. It is
Yep.
in fact randomly assigned.
Wheels are spun.
Yep.
Yeah. You'll see it. You'll see it be spun.
And for $20 a month, you can get in our patron hangouts.
Along with once the whole global pandemic ends.
If it ends.
Yeah. Live events as well. Free tickets to that.
Yep.
And for $50 a month, you can be on this show. You could be on Atheist Sunday School once a month. Really, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or when we start doing the Saturday show.
Yeah, that too.
And I guess, if you wanted, you could, appear just randomly.
Like,
If you wanted to, post a video on our channel that's, 30 seconds long.
depends on the video.
It depends on it.
Okay, but anyways, we'll
That only once a month.
shit. I don't know how that would go. Why? I
I
don't
don't
even know
know.
why you're mentioning that. We never talked about that
Yeah.
at all.
Probably
Anyways,
not. Unless we start doing every day of the week weekly shows,
sure,
in which case they would be able to appear any day of the week.
I guess.
But for now, they're limited to the weekends.
Yeah.
Sucks to be them.
Yeah.
Well, I guess not. They still get to appear on our show.
Yeah.
So-
Either way.
Sucks to be them.
We also, if you don't want to be a patron, we just got our Teespring. Link is in the description. You can get, wacky and fun shirts.
Yeah, so wacky, so fun. You've never seen shirts like these.
Yeah, definitely not, unless you've visited the site, in which case you have, in fact, seen shirts just like those.
Or if you've seen Landon out and about.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see what else we got going on. We got an Amazon wish list. Lots of cool books you could add to this table, or you could add to research for other videos.
Or you could buy us books indiscriminately without caring about what you get us. It's all on the wish list. You don't have to want us to produce something to buy us a book.
All right.
But you
Well,
could,
we'd
just-
appreciate it either way. Thanks.
Yeah. I think that's oh, yeah, and it's free to follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Yep.
Links are in the description. Thank you
I
for
only
joining
have
us.
a drive if you donate.
Do you have
If
Instagram?
you donate to Ball,
Oh
you get
yeah, Ball, the drive.
Oh yeah, the $666. Once we hit it, we're going to get a thetan meter. We're going to see what Scientology is all about. We're going to criticize L. Ron Hubbard's invention. We're going to get
Hack
into
it.
it. We're going to hack it. How far along are we on that donation drive?
About $50.
$50.
Yeah,
Well,
we're getting there.
once we hit 666, we're taking on Scientology.
Yeah, we are. It'll be fun, and we also got to do the alchemy thing too.
Yep. Eventually.
We will.
Yep.
Either way, thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see